My 37M, wife, 35F, and I have been married for 8 years, together for 10. We have been through thick and thin. She is my best friend and the love of my life. We don't have any kids. We wanted them, but it wasn't in the cards for us. Today, during my lunch break, I decided to explore a new area, to try out a different place. As I strolled along the sidewalk, I saw my wife stepping out of a coffee shop across the street with a man I recognized from her work. They were smiling and chatting, and then the man slipped his arm around her waist, pulling her closer, leaned in and kissed her, and she kissed him back. I froze, unable to process what I was seeing. In that moment, everything around me faded into a blur. I stood there, barely believing what I was seeing. This couldn't be happening. I wanted to scream, to run across the street and demand an explanation, but I couldn't move. It was as though I was anchored to the pavement. As they turned to walk away, still caught up in their own world, I realized they didn't even see me. A jarring mix of hurt and betrayal pierced through the shock. I can't wrap my mind around what I saw. I love this woman more than life itself. I have given her all of me. I have loved her unconditionally. I am crushed, gutted. I can't remember how the rest of the day went after that. It was all a blur. I couldn't face going back home to face her, so I told her I needed to stay at a friend's house tonight because he's going through a rough time and could use the support. She bought it. I am sleeping in my car tonight. My world is falling apart, and I don't know what to do now. Last night was one of the hardest nights of my life. I spent it in the car, needing space to process everything. A hotel wasn't an option for reasons I've explained elsewhere. Knowing my wife's routine and that she leaves for work before I do, I returned home in the morning after she had already left to shower and change before heading to work myself. Where I'm at mentally, I feel deeply hurt and betrayed. All night, I couldn't stop thinking about the life we've built together and how it now feels destroyed. I've been trying to recall any red flags I might have missed. I'm at a loss because we've always been good at talking through everything. Recently, though, she's been busier at work, which has led to less communication between us, but I didn't see it as a major issue at the time. A few months ago, she mentioned missing the excitement in our relationship. We talked about it and agreed that this is normal in long-term relationships, and we committed to taking steps to bring that spark back. We've followed through, aside from occasional busy periods. I take care of myself, and I think I'm an interesting person and a good husband, so I'm left wondering if she sought excitement elsewhere. That's the only explanation I can come up with, and it makes me incredibly angry. Right now, I'm feeling 80% hurt and 20% angry, but I know the anger will grow in the coming days and weeks. As for the guy, I only know his name and that he works closely with my wife on a new project. I assume he'll be part of the upcoming work trip too. She's never mentioned him beyond that, and I have no idea if he's married or in a relationship. Here's what I'm planning to do next. I've already spoken to a few divorce lawyers, and while I live in a fault-based location, proving adultery in court can be a long and expensive process. Also, we need to be separated before filing for divorce. Tonight, I plan to go home and act like I don't know anything, which will be difficult, so I can gather more information about the extent of her relationship with this guy. When I confront her, I'll reveal one thing I've found out and see if she'll admit the rest. I also want to learn more about the colleague. If he has a partner, she deserves to know as well. The challenge here is I'm not sure how to gather more details. Some have suggested getting a PI, but that feels extreme. If anyone has experience with this or other ways to get more information, I'd appreciate your input. I'm also not sure how I'll feel once I know everything. I've always said I wouldn't forgive cheating, but I still love my wife. Maybe once I have all the facts, I'll see things differently and be ready to move forward with separation and divorce. I've opened a new bank account and applied for a new credit card. I've updated HR of the account information to ensure my paycheck is deposited into the new account. Over my dead body, will I let her spend any more of my money on him, if that's what she's been doing? I'm going to use work as an excuse to avoid intimacy with her. Honestly, throwing myself into work and handling these next steps will help keep me from losing my mind. Therapy will come later. For now, it's easier to type this all out than to speak about it. Talking about it aloud would make it too real, and I'm not ready for that yet. I also don't want any friends or family to know about this for now. Speaking with lawyers was different because it felt more practical. I will reach out to my doctor to request the STI tests. A few other points to make. My wife and I don't have typical jobs. We sometimes work at the office, but we also spend a lot of time meeting clients at various locations. So, we spend a lot of time commuting, which means grabbing coffee/lunch on the go. We work in a large metropolitan area, and we've never crossed paths during the day until yesterday. It so happened that yesterday, during one of my commutes, I happened to be at a location a little further out, which is why I decided to grab lunch in that area. I found out everything, and it's worse than I could have imagined. Last night, I checked her phone while she was in the shower. She had left her phone in the bedroom, and it was not passcode protected. Maybe she thought I wouldn't check. Maybe she got too comfortable lying to my face. Either way, she made a mistake. I went through her phone and found the separate messaging app to communicate with him. And that's when everything unraveled. Their entire relationship was right there. There were thousands of texts, and even pictures, some lasting well into the night while I was asleep next to her. It wasn't just a fling. This has been going on for months. They've been meeting up regularly, coffee shops, hotels, client lunches. She's been calling him pet names. There was talk of missed moments and wishing for more time together. The worst part? She has been telling him things she used to say to me, word for word. "You make me feel alive," the exact phrase she used when we first started dating. That was our thing, and she recycled it for him. I felt physically sick. After years of being together, of building a life, that's how she sees it. Like everything we've built together meant nothing. I also found out the work trip she's going on next week was not just business. They've planned everything. Dinners, hotel rooms, more alone time. She's treating this like some kind of romantic getaway with him, while I sit here like a fool. I thought I'd already hit my breaking point. I thought nothing could hurt worse than the betrayal I'd uncovered. But then I found out something that knocked the wind right out of me, like a punch straight to the gut. I booked us a cabin for the weekend 2 months ago. It was an opportunity for us to reconnect, just the two of us. A day before the trip, she said her company needed her to drive to another city for the weekend to meet with clients, that it was urgent and she couldn't get out of it. She was so apologetic, especially because it was 24 hours out and non-refundable. She even promised she'd make it up to me. I remember telling her it was okay, that I understood. I even felt bad for her having to miss out on what I thought would be a special time for us. I didn't take the trip that weekend because I didn't want to go without her, and as annoying as it was, I accepted that the reservation had gone to waste. I found that she had sent the booking confirmation to him and nearly lost it. Then I saw the photos, walking by the lake, sitting by the fireplace, wine glasses in hand. The weekend that was supposed to be about us became their little fantasy escape. I can't even describe how that felt. She canceled our trip to take him instead. I realized then the full extent of her betrayal, and I lost it. I almost threw her phone across the room, but I didn't because all the evidence was on there. When she finally came out of the shower, I couldn't pretend anymore, and anyways she could tell something was very wrong. So I confronted her. I asked her if there was something she needed to tell me. She said no, but I could see the panic set in. I pressed harder, told her I knew everything. The emails, the lunches, the hotel stays, her fucking affair. She started crying and apologizing. I asked her why she had done it. She said it was a mistake, that she got caught up in the excitement, that she missed the feeling of something new. I asked if she loved him. She said no. She loved me and wanted to be with me. I asked if she slept with him, and she said yes. I told her how much she had destroyed me, how she shattered everything we built. I asked her if she ever thought about what this would do to me, to us. She just sat there, crying and apologizing over and over. I told her I was done, that there was no coming back from this. She begged for forgiveness. I told her to get out, to go be with him since she wanted him so badly. She broke down, insisting she didn't want him, that she wanted me, and she'd do anything to fix this. By then, it was almost midnight, so I told her to sleep in the guest bedroom. She asked for her phone back, but I refused, saying I was holding on to it for now. When she tried to argue, I warned her. If she took the phone from me, I'd leave. She didn't want that, so I kept it. Once I was alone, I forwarded the entire thread of their messages to myself. I went through them in more detail. That's when I found out that the guy is married, too. There was no mention of kids, though. This morning, we barely acknowledged each other. No words were exchanged. I gave her the phone back, but I made it clear. If she goes on her work trip, she'll come back to an empty house. She promised she wouldn't go. She apologized again, but I wasn't ready to hear it. After she left for work, I broke down. For the first time since this all started, I cried. Edit. I am coming to realize that my marriage is a sham, so this will be my last update on this sub. Tomorrow I will go to the guy's house. I found his address from her Google Maps recent history. I have printed the message thread between them along with the pictures and will be giving them to his wife, who is unaware of what is going on as far as I know. I will also face this man who quite literally destroyed my life. I am done playing nice, I told his wife. First thing this morning, I went over to his house. She was home, but he wasn't. It worked out better this way because it gave me a chance to talk to her without him there to deny it. When I told her, at first she didn't believe me. She kept saying I had the wrong guy. But then I showed her the texts, the photos, everything. I could see the devastation hit her like a ton of bricks. She was completely blindsided. I apologized, told her I wish I didn't have to be the one to tell her, but I thought she had a right to know. She thanked me, and I gave her my number in case she wanted to talk or needed anything. They've only been married for a year. No kids. When I got home, my wife was furious with me. Apparently, the wife called her husband, and he called mine to tell her what I'd done. My wife was angry, not about the mess she caused, but because I'd outed her affair. Couldn't believe it. She was more worried about her affair partner's reaction than what she had done to me. And then it got worse. This guy, this man who destroyed both of our marriages, had the nerve to come to my house, banging on my door like a lunatic. I opened it, trying to stay calm, but I was fuming. He started yelling, accusing me of ruining his marriage. The sheer audacity. I told him to get off my property, that if he wanted to blame someone, he should look at himself and my wife, not me. He was yelling obscenities at me. I didn't want to get physical with him. I turned to my wife and said, "You brought this trash into our lives. Get him off my front porch," and started to go back inside. She tried to get him to leave, but that's when things took a turn. He grabbed her arm, shoved her, and she fell. At that moment, something snapped inside me. I'm not a violent man, but seeing him put his hands on her, in spite of everything, sent me over the edge. I restrained him, warned him that if he ever set foot near my house or touched my wife again, I'd call the police. He panicked and left. Before I went back inside, I turned to my wife and asked, "This is the man you chose over me? I will never forgive you for the position you've put me in." She just stood there, staring at me in shock. For the first time since this nightmare started, I saw it on her face, like it had finally hit her. The damage, the betrayal, the mess she'd made. She collapsed on the ground, sobbing. I still can't wrap my head around how she destroyed our lives for that guy. I've asked her to leave the house, but she refuses. I can't stand being in her presence, so I'm considering staying at my close friend's place for a while. I am meeting him tonight for a drink to tell him everything. Last night, I met up with my best friend for drinks. After reading the advice from many of you suggesting I steer clear of alcohol for now, I decided to drive to avoid the temptation. My wife knew where I was going, and she was concerned about what people in our community might think if they found out what she did. But she also said she was happy I had someone to talk to, since she knew I was hurting deeply. Finally being able to talk to someone about everything lifted a weight off my shoulders. But at the same time, it felt like the full reality of my situation hit me all over again. It's devastating, really. When I got home, it was late, but she was still awake, watching our wedding video, and I could tell she had been crying. Seeing that set me off. I got angry, asking her why she was even bothering to watch it, accusing her of trying to manipulate me. She said that wasn't her intention, that for months she had felt like she was living in someone else's body, but now she was finally realizing how badly she had messed up. She said she watched the video because she just wanted to see us during a time when we were happy. I told her it's a shame she didn't realize how good we had it, how happy I was with her. I thought she felt the same way. She broke down, saying she had been stupid not to appreciate what she had right in front of her. I'm usually strong-willed, and I don't waver easily, but this whole situation has broken me, and I'm not proud of what happened next. She hugged me, kissed me, and I let her, but just before it went any further, I caught myself. I pulled back and told her this wasn't going to work, that she couldn't possibly believe I could just forgive everything she did. She said she understood but wanted to talk. So we sat down and we talked for hours. I asked her why she did it, and she said she had been thinking about that all day. She wasn't sure why exactly, but she admitted she missed the excitement in our relationship. I told her I already knew that. We had talked about it before and agreed to make more of an effort. More date nights, less work. But she said it wasn't enough. She said there were times I'd cancel date nights for work, and that made her feel like an afterthought. I owned up to my part in things but reminded her that none of it justified what she did. She agreed, but she wanted me to know what led her to make those choices. Then I told her how I found out. She looked shocked, thinking I had only discovered the affair by going through her phone. I told her I saw her kissing him outside the coffee shop. She was floored. I asked how it started. She said it had been going on for months. They worked closely together with a group of people, and he was always friendly but nothing inappropriate at first. Then, when I'd cancel plans, she'd sometimes join her colleagues at the pub after work. He picked up on it, asking her why I canceled, and it started there. One night after a few drinks, they stayed behind while the others left, and he told her if he were married to her, he'd never cancel a date. They kissed, and she immediately regretted it, and took an Uber home, even though he offered to drop her off. After that, things got more subtle but continued. Eventually, they worked late nights together on a project, and things escalated. I just sat there, listening. I told her I was devastated when I saw that she'd taken him on the trip I had planned for us. She said she was mad at me after an argument we'd had and took the trip with him out of spite. She knows now how messed up that was and wishes she could undo it all. I know I made mistakes too. We both have demanding jobs and I took some things for granted, but I always tried to make it up to her. She acknowledged that but said she still felt like she wasn't a priority. I asked if she fell in love with him. She swore she didn't, that she just liked the attention he gave her. She wanted to know where my head was at. I told her I was heartbroken, that I never imagined we'd be here. We always communicated, but it turns out we weren't talking about the right things. I reminded her that cheating was a deal breaker for me. She knew that. She said she understood if I wanted a divorce but hoped I might give her a chance to make things right. I'm not sure if I'm being a fool, but I told her I hadn't decided yet. I made it clear that if we were going to attempt reconciliation, there would be conditions. I told her she had to cut off all contact with him. She agreed. Write down every detail of their relationship. Every kiss, every trip, every time they were intimate. And if I found out she left anything out, I would leave immediately. She agreed. I also told her she had to tell our friends and family what she did. There was some hesitation, but she eventually agreed, and start individual counseling to figure out why she did this. She agreed. In the meantime, I've scheduled a meeting with a divorce lawyer next week to understand my options, because I don't want to be caught off guard again. I don't plan on telling her this. Earlier today, the guy's AP wife messaged me. She asked if I'd be willing to meet her later to talk. I agreed. My wife knows, but she isn't happy about it. And for the record, my wife knew he was married all along. Apparently, he told her that his wife had changed after they got married, was treating him badly and refused to have sex with him, and that he was planning to divorce her. I'm starting to realize this guy might have been lying the entire time just to sleep with my wife. At this point, I'm emotionally and physically drained.